provision of urban amenities for rural areas. Right. This is, as Puneet said, this is part of the kickoff webinars that we are trying to do to channelize for the forthcoming conference at in on humanitarian technologies coming up in October, hopefully, and we pray that it will happen in October. So we'll see. Anyhow, just to recap, I will recap what we discussed in part one. We saw many challenges. We went through various challenges, including the current challenge of migration and how we can, address to stop these migration through Pura initiatives. We went through and said that our focus, essentially, if we focus on decent work and economic growth, we should be able to solve a lot of the SDG goals and eventually develop a community which is self-sustainable. We discussed what elements Pura includes. It is Dr. Kalam's proposed interventions. If you have not read the book, Target 3 Billion, go get a copy. It's a good read for for your lockdown period. And this the highlight is that it really enables local socio-economic development, which eventually impacts immigration and reduces the infrastructure burdens on the cities. If we make more and more villages livable, provide more amenities in the villages, less and less migration to the cities will take place. That is a premise that we are not only saying, but we have seen and we have shown by implementation of many such initiatives. We went through the approach of technology-based solutions, technology-based interventions. Uh, most of these interventions or most of the process requires good technology so that it can be scalable and sustainable. Local empowerment needs to take place, and we need to create employment, entrepreneurship, skill development, and youth empowerment. We looked at it that how food, water, energy theory of change works. For those who did not attend yesterday's, please bear with us. I cannot go through the whole slides, but these are the key takeaway from those last yesterday's presentation. That you make value proposition or interventions with a focus on decent work, giving importance for gender equality, and responsible consumption in the villages, especially from the food, water, energy perspective. Anchor your solutions in anchor your solutions in the people, planet, and progress of sustainable triangle, and you will see the outcome that addresses poverty, hunger, employment, education, health, inequalities. All of these can be reduced if we focus on the three components that we have discussed. And over the long run, we end up developing the sustainable communities. Before I go into the various different technologies, let me right away first come to the discussion that how colleges and institutes play an important role in this development. We our journey really started at a college where we have converted one of the campuses into a smart microgrid campus. We have shown different kinds of sustainable technologies in working position. So all of these things that you see here, whether it is a biogas, whether it is a solar thermal, whether it is biomass, a smart microgrid, these are running system which feed into the campus. Water monitoring, water controls. These all of these solutions have been implemented, and they are helping the campus go green, as well as they are becoming a center for excellence for training. So our living laboratory, we call it a living laboratory where all technologies are working live, and that living laboratory can be used to train all three levels of training, which is the basic skills, vocational skills, or engineering students. So all of them learn from the same system, and that is the beauty of such creating such living laboratory. And they feed into a various job categories in the social sector or in the engineering sector. The same students, all the students are part of our village development. We take students from the village, from the colleges to the villages. They have done multiple projects which are related to villages. So that it not only gives them an exposure to the requirements, to the needs of our village, but it also gives them new tools, new techniques, which is very, very applied. It's not a theoretical knowledge that they gain. With that, the second level of collaboration and engineering or technology collaboration we have brought in is the international, where we there are various universities in the world working with us on various aspects of this social development. University of Oklahoma, Farouk is working on cyber physical social modeling. What happens if I make an intervention in the village? How does it change? I will tell you, I will show you I had shown you the helix, which I'll show you again today. And he is modeling each component of the helix, how the helix will keep on increasing, what will happen at each stage. University of Buffalo at, Sunny Buffalo is working on my microgrid technologies. How can we bring life cycle management? How can we make it scalable? So various models for that. You already saw NIST was the center where we have done a lot of engineering work. University of Edinburgh, a student came and did her PhD in my village. University of Liverpool is working on crowdfunding for rural development around us. That how do we go and become a crowdfunding platform? Similarly, Cambridge is working with us on the Smart Village initiatives. So these are the various researchers around the world who we are working to make sure that our effort, our knowledge, our you know uh, learnings are shared across. So we have published many papers and will continue to publish all our learnings into journals and conferences so that it is available for everybody to learn from. So as you saw that it's basically we are working at the confluence of technologies, climate technologies, information technologies, and social engineering. So social engineering is a very important part of what we are trying to do and what we do. And that is why we believe, and to do that, you see that this is a very complex scenario that I need to understand all three to make a technology, make a intervention succeed in a village. And that is why it requires a different kind of competencies and just not just the technical expertise. And
ଭିତରେ ଇଏ କରିକି
so
ଆପଣ ସେ ଯୋଉ ନାଇଁ କି
these
ମାନେ
competencies will be dealt. Okay, someone can you put on mute, please?
ଅମଳ
Please mute yourself.
ବିଛାଟିଆ
Hello,
କରି
Sanjeev Nayak is speaking. Okay, all right. So we will have Professor Farooq Mistry on Friday or Saturday, depending on his availability, walk you through these competencies, how they come in handy to make sure that your development process works. So let's go back to our food, water, energy and look at some of the energy. Now I'll go through these three scenarios and show you what are the various technologies we have developed or available that can help achieve our goals of sustainable development. You know that access to electricity has, there are many ways to gain access to electricity, including the grid. The Sorry, this is an old file with RGGVY. Now it should be DDGUY. Then we have home lighting solutions and we have microgrid solutions. We believe that the for the socio-economic development, microgrid solutions are the one which are required. We cannot achieve many of these goals by just the home lighting or lantern. So microgrid has been our focus. There are various sizes of microgrids. It can be megawatt, it can be just watts. Not even 2 kilowatt. There are microgrids with 200 watts, right? So it depends on, and in between is the microgrid that we are working primarily targeted around 30 to 100 kilowatts. So this microgrid is a technology which is essentially tailored. You can tailor it to whatever requirements you have. Uh, there are many players in microgrids in India. There has been, starting with the Terry, they started the first wave, and Desi Power came in the second wave. Then after that, a lot of people have. So Desi Powers are really the pioneers in microgrid for livelihood, especially. Their whole focus was for livelihood. Then there is Husk, Meragaon Power, and all that. Some of them are even closed now. So the it's not that they have not done it. So what is the problem? So we found that there are a lot of challenges with all these microgrids. I sort of went through the entire gamut of microgrid installations and came up that these are the various challenges that we need to face. We need to solve. Non-scalable power supply, microgrid failure, pilferage, load management, monitoring. You know, People took 1 week to figure out to get the information and then provide solution. That's too much of a time to solve the issues in the village. O&M technical support, business viability, and skill gap. So these are the primary problems that we felt are there, and that is why we embarked on developing a solution to address that. We also realize that most microgrids today cater to tier 1 and tier 2 of World Bank's energy access. Uh, Tier 2 is at most you get lights, fans, and television running. But tier 3 onward is where you start to generate some productive loads and you can serve some productive loads. We have always tried to target at tier 3, 4, and actually tier 5 is nothing but tier grid. It goes close to the grid. Someone asked me a question yesterday that productive load, anchor loads, and microgrids, and there has been studies which does say that you know in which case scenario microgrid is better, and it has to have sufficient amount of household. It has to be above tier 3 to really help and serve the villages properly. That has been a validation of whatever we have been thinking and trying to achieve through our microgrids. So this is what we have come up with. We have hybrid renewable sources. So don't depend on single source because that is what is limiting a lot of these. Uh,
Thus, we are not able to hear you. Any problem at your end?
did I mute myself?
Yeah, I think. Can you just repeat this slide?
Okay. So what I was saying that this is what our solution has been. We have tried to put together a solution to address all the challenges that I mentioned so far. So hybrid renewable sources of power. Again, someone is playing music. Thank you, Harsh.
Please go ahead, Dr. Dash.
Protocols that has been definitely also accolades and awards from various organizations, including the USA DST Millennium Alliance. And only list this March, we got the ISGF Diamond Award for technology company. That has been our that has been the effort here. Solution is a smart microgrid. It's not just a plain vanilla microgrid. And this is just a definition from the Wikipedia that we use the analog and digital information to gather and act on information about the behavior of suppliers. Suppliers mean the supply and demand of electricity. We automate the grid to improve efficiency, reliability, economics, and sustainability. So that is what we do in the microgrid in our small power generation system. It's a plug and play. Why did we do the plug and play and um, multiple options to interface with other technology is very important. When you design a product, we had in the mind that the product must be able to scale and it should be as open as possible because the more proprietary you make it, the more difficulty you have in penetrating, especially the rural market, where I don't know what will I encounter, whether I can get a GPRS there, whether I can get Wi-Fi, whether I can get or not get. So I have to make it compatible to any kind of communication that I could get, any kind of sensors and meters I can get, and I can read it. So the international protocols and universal compatibility and security is paramount. And for anybody thinking about new solutions, etc., you should always think that how your technology is going to scale up as the technology landscapes keep changing. We have managed to, adapt it to the various changes that are occurring in these sectors, including the latest LoRa. We are also LoRa compatible. Let anything come, and we should be able to handle that. Only then you build resilience. One of the problems that I mentioned was that very hard to get maintenance, operations, and maintenance getting done, and also find talent in the village to go and run these. So there are only two ways you can do that. Either you have to train the manpower to the level of the technology that you are going to implement, or you make the technology so smart or so called dumb so that anybody can run it. So we have gone the other way. We are trying to simplify the technology for the end users so that an eighth grade pass student can run my system, an uneducated farmer can run my system, and no, they don't need to. India being such a vast, language uh, divided country, I removed all the language from the interface. So anybody can use it anywhere in the world now, not only in the country. So no languages, symbolic, uh, mobile app that helps to adapt uh, any of these villagers very easy. It's very easy for them to adapt to our technology. And most importantly, what is happening in the village? I must get the data in real time and at my control center or dashboards where I know what is happening in the village. I know how can I solve those problems. If the local operator doesn't call me, I call them and say, hey, this is going to fail or this is not wrong, go fix it. So we train the locals in maintaining and operating the system. And that is how we have been able to provide support sustainably, empowering the villagers. They don't need to depend on outsiders to take care of these things. And that is a key message that I'm trying to say, that we need to make it empowered. We need to make it localized as much as possible. These are my change makers. These are the students, the villagers, the youth that we hired. And we said that you work with me during the implementation period. And that helps them learn new things. We even go and do some of the assembly in the village so that they know how to fix these things. Once you do that, I know it is a lot, it is an additional effort during the implementation. But believe me or not, after that, your life is easier. You don't have to run to the village again and again to solve these small things, to fix these small things. They can take care of it. And that is provides long-term sustainability. I already discussed this yesterday, showed you the video, how Chutki was the first village that we transformed. And we focused on both access to energy and access to livelihood. Uh, so a lot of livelihood activities started to work. We have faced some more challenges here, and we're still continue engaged with this community to see how we can solve their new challenges and continue them on the development path. Recently, we have done an island. So it's again a microgrid on an island, small number of households, but a vast agricultural land that they want to, y- you know, cultivate, and they don't have. First of all, energy was not there, so we have brought power, and now we are trying to get water into the island so that they can start to improve their livelihood. Many people are now coming. Many people had migrated out of this island because there was nothing. And now, with the advent of these electricity and water efforts, many of them are coming back into the village, and they are again back to the village, back to this island, trying to make life better and not to be, migrant worker in bigger cities. So far, we have achieved primarily quality of life goals, that is, amenities. So they have been able to do street lights, have made the life much more easier. Kids are studying now in the night, and they have access to, physical comforts. The next step is to bring them water. It is an irony that this is an island, but there is no water. So we are trying to get the water from the river, which is a challenge. Let's go to the water as we are talking about water. So in the water, again, we found that there are multiple challenges. We know that water level is decreasing everywhere throughout India, and not only India, throughout the world, water level is a problem. So how do we use, how do you make our irrigation more efficient? So currently, there's a very inefficient irrigation, a lot of wastage of water. There is a lack of precision agricultural practice. We have mostly traditional ways, which is a wastage of water, energy, and nutrients. There are no scientific method existing for irrigations. Very few have been implemented. They are still doing a lot of research. Irregular timing of irrigation. Whenever we have power, the power water runs. Whether the water is going into the field or not, nobody cares. So that is the way we have been treating water for agriculture, which is about 70% of the water use of the country. Then, especially for marginalized farmer, which is the topic today, BOP, there is not much. I mean, they cannot afford to buy pumps. They don't have funds. They're not. The sharing model is not working because it's not equitable. So there are issues in sharing models. So we have tried to address this community specifically so that shared water resources can be used by them. which also achieves the above three, that water conservation, water efficiency, and uh, and regularity of irrigation. So once again, we have mobile tablet-based solutions which work over a local network, work with our controller, which works with the pump or the water power supply system, and meters, sensors, and valves control help me achieve smart precision distribution into the villages, into the fields. Again, meters and sensors with mobile IoT and universal protocols. Right quantity of water at the right location at the right price. That is the entire goal. And for this, we won the award, Jeff Unido Award for Facility for Low Carbon Technology Department. And we have been uh, to scale this technology further. Now, this is just an example. You may have, all of you are aware of solar water irrigation. You go and people just, and especially with the Kusum scheme, tons of these are being distributed. Look at this wastage of water. This is a water starved zone, and it is a rainy season where the the nalas are full of water. Still, as soon as the sun comes, this water keeps on running. We are taking the groundwater and wasting by bringing it on the surface. It goes nowhere. That's not a holistic solution. What we did, this is the same area, a few, just a kilometer from the previous location. This is where we have installed piping control systems, no water. The pump, if the water is not required, it doesn't run. This is some of these things. Control is a basic requirement for sustainable development. We cannot afford to waste any resource, whether it is, people think that water is free, but it is not. So please keep in mind, water is going to be a major resource which will be under stress very soon. How do we conserve that? How do we make sure that water is not wasted? These are some of the transformation that we have seen in some of these villages where we have implemented. And what you must note is that 27 of acres of land is only served by 3 HP solar pump. Farmers' income have increased tremendously. Now today, the whole standard people are saying is that 7 HP pump for 5-acre land. That is really, really a shock. Why do we need such big pumps? Why? That eventually leads to wastage of water, as I showed you earlier. If you put a pump of 5 HP and 7 HP, it will keep on pumping water as soon as there is a solar. So that is very, very unsustainable. We need to have control on the water. Another village, this is the one I already showed you, same solution. And people have started to, you know, do multiple crops. They all used to do one crop in a year. Now they have gone to 3 crops. Now the challenge is not only India, it's everywhere. We have just installed one solution in Rwanda with our partners. And same, we have taken a river, this is river water, and from the river water, we have to pump water to all these farmers. And this is the first time the farmers are using irrigation. They have never seen being irrigated like this before. And it has caught, caught like a fire in that area. And we see that more and more people are interested in getting these solutions. This is the one learning that I had from one of the farmers. Every farmer teaches me new things. And this farmer taught me that पानी के हिसाब से खेती, ना कि खेती के हिसाब से पानी. What it means is that you first look at the resources available, natural resources available, and then plan your crops accordingly. I know areas in Kolar. which is 1500 feet water availability, and they are doing sugarcane. Is that viable? Is that what we should do? Never. First, look at how much water we have available, and then decide which crops can I do with that water. But that thinking has not the commercial. On one side we are trying to help the marginal farmer. On the other side, there are commercial farmers just driven by the uh, you know by the profits, and they are screwing up. They're completely ruining the water ecosystem. How do we go and solve these things? How can we help them not to do that? Let's go on to the food side. And here I said that we are not in the agriculture. We are not doing anything to other than water and fertilizers. But what we want to focus, as I said earlier, is that how do we make farmers focus more and more on post harvesting? That is where the value add occurs. And that is how their income can be increased and supplemented. So for that, this is a project that we are doing in Jharkhand, and this is a PPP project. But here we have taken a barren land and we are setting up these micro enterprises. These micro enterprises are the one that they said they needed. It's not that we told them that you need these things. It's a localized solution, and this will be completely powered by microgrid or smart nanogrid and water solution through Aquanet. The There is a market linkage established with a shop in Jamshedpur where any excess produce in the village in this panchayat will be transported and sold in the market. Now this is not just that. This hub is at one hub is at the center of the 14 villages in the panchayat. So it's at the panchayat level, and at the village level, we have multiple activities uh, taking place so that they become an input for these micro enterprises. For example, take this is a hilly area, this is a forest area. So a lot of sal leaves are collected. The sal leaves can be collected all around the village, but they will be processed in this center to make plates, to make sal leaf products. So the idea is that it should be an inclusive development where everybody benefits by, even though I'm providing it at one location in the panchayat, but the input, the impact is on multiple of the village and multiple of the villagers. That is the that is how microeconomic zones would work, which we now this project. Someone yesterday asked that, are you working with the government? Actually, any village development, the problem today, any village development, let me see how. Let me first say what it needs. It needs a convergence. Agriculture, rural development, energy, MSME, all of these need to work together to achieve Pura. Pura is not a single entity achieving it. Obviously, rural development department may be the lead and they can, but they have to channel all together these components. And in this model that we are doing in Jharkhand, we have ensured that our main agency is Rural Development Department, but they are working with MSME department, water department, the energy department to make sure that all the ecosystems come into play and we provide the innovation and the integration and the operations and maintenance. That is our goal. Obviously, Kala Mandir is a local partner, so they become the main interface to the villagers. And these all these departments work through Kala Mandir to get the right amenities into the villages. Someone also asked me, what is the business? What are the funding models? So our funding model, or this Pura funding model has to be a combination, but where you must, you know, but this funding model must have a revenue model. Without a revenue model, this cannot sustain. So we spend a lot of effort and time to create revenue model so that it can be sustained. Then there is a funding required for the equity and the capex. So the opex must be recovered and some profits made through the revenue for to pay the capex back. For the capex back, there are multiple sources of funding that we are working with. It could be grants, it could be debts, it could be impact fund, it could be equity investment, the government funding. There are multiple ways that this funding can be brought in, and we have worked extensively with the CSR funds, with the government, and we have not looked into the debt yet, but definitely we are looking around and grants at various kinds of funding to make these models or to make this uh, model work and business model succeed. Just so as to know that yes, we have our most of our solutions have been recognized from the very beginning to the latest. Now we got in this award.
For example, I was
Uh, yeah, we do. We have been covered by a lot of journals, and the theory of change you saw yesterday. I showed you the helix of development. That how at various stages you make various interventions. That is the value proposition interventions that will eventually lead you to the community. So I showed you a few examples today, and I'm just telling you that, like, if we look at various sites, at that one we have a different levels of intervention. So in the stage one we did domestic, stage two we are doing micro entrepreneurs, stage three we are bringing agriculture. In Khudgaon, this is just domestic load. Then we are going for irrigation. Then we'll go for agri production, agri produce processing. So in every village, the interventions are different at stage one. And from there, you keep on moving. So yesterday also someone asked me a question, how can you start? What is the minimum? I am saying there is no minimum. It's just based on the need of the community today. You address that need and keep moving from there onwards. That is what the social, that is how the development happens. We can achieve our Pura Smart Village. So if I can, put it in a graphical way, it's essentially you make some interventions today, stage one, you bring stage two, stage three, stage four, stage five, and finally, someone was asking me yesterday, what is your dream? So this is my dream. How can we achieve Village Swaraj? And Village Swaraj is a journey. It's not a one day impact or one time effort. And in fact, even the Pura is a journey. It cannot be achieved in a single stroke. You have to keep moving from various stages to achieve that goal. And that is why the engagement has to be long term. It cannot be a short term transactional, relationship. It has to be a long term transformative relationship where we work together with the community to transform it into becoming a village Swaraj. So we empower lives. It is always good to see the education, the happy farmers, and the optimistic mothers. She is thinking about third generation, not even today. So this transformation is a generational. It will take you much more time to achieve that goal, and that is where we many of us lose patience and say, "Forget it. It's not going to happen." All I will say, keep trying. It will happen. All right. It always seems impossible until it is done. We have done some, and we are going to do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Das. Thank you very much. Uh, a very nice caption that you have told that third generation woman is telling that she wants her grandchildren to be like you. I just want to tell that I want at least one person to be like you who has attended this webinar so that we can really.
Actually, that you was my employee. She was in the village and she said, you guys are here to helping people. I want my daughter to become that. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what that is a very good compliment. And I would also like to see at least one person from this registered delegates. If anyone can take up this activity, that will be a dream come true. Thank you very much for exhaustively covering, but not going into the details of technicalities and covering most of the things what we have discussed yesterday, mainly with respect to microgrid, Aquanet, and micro entrepreneur things. So you have given a real glimpse of Gandhi's village Swaraj. Now we will go to the questions.
Yes.
I have already received questions. So I will read one by one and I will request you to answer.
Will try my best.
Yeah. The first question is, can this whole concept of, please mute yourself. I am reading your questions. If you are having anything, please write in the chat window. I am requesting all of you to please mute yourself. So this whole concept of Pura, uh, well then,
That's the best. It looks like you muted yourself also.
no, and now I'm audible now.
Yes, now you are.
Yeah. So first question is, can this whole concept of Pura and its implementation by your team be evolved beyond this webinar into some part of online training or coursework? At least the basic aspect of it.
Well, I didn't have time to develop a coursework, but we are definitely working with, I mentioned to you about Farooq Mistry.
Yeah.
And with Farooq, we have developed a certain modules that how can this go as a training, and we will develop, we'll definitely work on it, but it requires a lot of time. So that is why I have given it to the professors. They can do it better. So I provide all the input. So Farooq and I do a sort of a combined course where he teaches theory, I teach the experiments, I teach my implementation.
Thank you. Now, next question is, by any chance, did our late former President Dr. Kalam get to see the work done by your team? What was his response?
Unfortunately not, but believe me or not, I met Srijan Pal Singh in Lucknow. And when I told him that this is what we are working on, his immediate response was, "Oh my God, at least someone is working on this." I, he was glad to see that someone is trying to take his, you know, vision into practice. So I'm sure Dr. Kalam would have been happy, but I never got to meet him. And we are still in touch with Srijan Pal Singh, and we are trying to follow up. He's trying to see where we, finally end up.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. He would have, in fact, made sure that he is visiting at least one of your smart villages and knowing the things on first hand. He was very good in those aspects. Now, coming to the next question, what are the systems or products developed by your team for rural areas, And for IoT products, which type of connectivity protocol have you implemented?
You wrote the question before I showed everything, but I think I have covered it. That the various solutions that we have developed on smart nanogrid, smart aquanet, smart microeconomic zone, IoT, as I also showed you that IoT we have developed such that it is a cross-platform IoT. So I really, in every village, I have different kind of communication available. Somewhere I'm working with satellite, somewhere I'm working with GPRS, somewhere I'm working on LAN. So it doesn't matter. Okay. So we have made sure that I can be I can adapt it to whatever whatever communication channels I have available in that village.
Thank you. Next question. In the sites you worked, was rain a scarcity? Was there any potential to recharge shallow aquifers through rainwater harvesting and recharge?
Okay, so I did not go into detail into Jharkhand, but Jharkhand project is based on all uh, check dams. The water is only available through check dams. So wherever we go, we try to tell them that, what are the various ways we can do it. But we are not the experts to go and build check dams and build, reservoirs. But that we do consider it as the option of sustainable water resources. Our our focus is primarily on the demand side management, but we do make sure that the supply side is also sustainable. So yes, the answer is yes, and we do consider various ways to make it sustainable.
Yeah, so questions are increasing. So I was just copying them on the slide so that I can ask you. Next question is how you are measuring the social return of investment in all these projects?
Good. Uh, when I was trying to specially ask for money funds from people, uh, I'll give you one example. Uh, that someone said that, hey, you put one microgrid in one village, it's about a crore. Right? In that one, I can give them 10,000, at least 100 villages with lanterns. So why should I not do that versus do your microgrid? So it was a challenge, and we started thinking that how do we measure impact? And we have gone to every agency. We looked at the Human Development Index. We looked at Human Development Index. Many of these, even Sustainable Development Index. None of those could fit into the kind of needs that we had. So that is when Farooq uh, came in to intervene and say, "Tell me what you need. We will develop it." So we have developed our own index, socio-economic development index, with the help of a master's student under Farooq, and we are trying to use that to assess impact in each of the villages. It is a holistic impact, holistic way to measure the impact. On the face value, on the face of it, the impact really is, which you saw, the compliments that you get. Right? This is the short term impact that I'm looking at,
For example,
right? That, hey, you changed my life. You increased farmers' income. We know we have increased. So we are measuring what input I'm giving and what is my output. So we are trying to measure as much as possible, but we are still not there fully. And any partnership, anybody wanting to help in those sectors, we are always open to work with them. Yes, we have made attempts with researchers and universities to develop those index.
Thank you very much. I think this social return of investment is the new buzzword everybody is asking. So, in
Yes,
Indian perspective, we are more than happy to see it, to hear a thank you that oh, you have done very much for us. So that's what at least we are looking for, not more than that. And
but
next,
definitely we are working on quantifying it at least to some extent. How do we
yeah,
quantify?
yeah, that way we can justify and attract more venture capitalists and other people.
Frankly, that is primarily to satisfy ourselves and to satisfy the investors.
That's what. Yeah. So coming to next question, again, I think there is a question on cold storage. Is there any case study on building mini cold storages for the agriculture produce or food processing done locally to avoid the type of wastage we are currently seeing among farmers during the lockdown times?
What do you mean by case study? So case studies are there to just study. We work on implementing. We know what we work with the villagers. And when I was in a meeting in Jharkhand, and we were telling that what all can we do with solar, someone is asking to annotate my shared content. Why? Anyway, so then one of the youth comes up and says, "Sir, you are setting this up. We need cold rooms." I said, "Why do you need cold rooms?" "Sir, our lemon and tomato gets wasted. We need to store it for a few days." So the need is already there. We can do a study and make it another, study report, but what is the use? I know there is a requirement. We know that this kind of cold room chains, you know, cold rooms, not the big cold chains, not the big cold storage we need, but we need small cold rooms. We need small, 5 ton, 10-ton kind of solution that provides temporary storage and keeps my produce better, or keep my produce from rotting, and I can get value to my produce. Cold rooms are a requirement, and that we consider that anywhere we go and see how we can address that cold room requirement. But first is, of course, they have to go from one crop to three crops. Only then the cold room comes. The kind of community we are working on, they're just one crop community. Grow rice and be happy.
Yeah. So I fully agree that there is a dire need of cold rooms. What you have rightly put, that rather than cold storage, every village farmer needs a cold room, and it's where they can store their crops and other things at least for a few months. If they are not able to sell, at least for their own consumption.
Yes.
And you have done it, so I think if anybody is interested, you can directly reach out to them and find out the solution. Now coming to next question, how is having Pura different from Gram Swaraj? Does having Pura successfully implemented means that what we have attained in Gram Swaraj? I think
I think Gram Swaraj is the ultimate, where the community becomes completely, localized, completely independent. Pura, we still have, you know, Pura also tries to say that it should be local amenities. So I don't think it's too much of a difference. But hey, that is a good topic, good question to be answered, and we will try to read it and see how it is. But you go and also read what is Gram Swaraj and what is the Pura.
yeah. So next question, is there a mechanism which enables interested engineering students from Bangalore colleges to get involved in these projects? Yeah.
I think someone from uh, what engineering college? BS College of Engineering in Bangalore. One of the professor wrote to me yesterday. He wants to work, and he wants us to help. Yes,
So
you can
yes,
always be part of it. I have shown you how students can work with us.
yeah.
You just
So
need
thank
to
you.
reach out. But one thing I must say that it's not just about students. We do not have the bandwidth to work with so many students. We can work through professors because they preserve the knowledge and they provide continuity. Whose video is on? Okay, they provide continuity, and that is so. If it is a student asking this question, please go speak to your professor, identify who can work in this sector, and come to us. If you want to come and go and do internship or go and to see my village and work on it, you're more than welcome to come. But then, that becomes very one-offs. We want to do a systematic change. And for systematic change, you need to have continuity. I think you have seen that continuity in all my presentation throughout that we don't go and do one-offs in the villages. We have to continue in the village.
So,
Okay?
yeah, I fully agree. It is much more sustainable to be working with professors because students will come and go. Yes, as you rightly said yesterday. So that's why it is much better to have a collaboration with professors where students can come, do some small portion of the work, leave and go, and fresh team comes and joins and take the work forward. Now, next question is again, did any time a parliamentary delegation could be roped into visiting these smart villages?
So
I see someone from a political background is also attending this conference and they want to show this. Good, so that's why this question is asked.
anybody is welcome, and we already have our local MPs visit our villages. They have gone and seen it, but we are still waiting for them to do anything.
Yeah. Can any one of us who is keen about what you are doing join the team to collaborate with the same? I think this you have already answered.
Yes.
And we will go to the next question. Is there any mechanism in deployed microgrid to deal with village expansion? What are the technical challenges that you have faced during this work?
So, as I said, village expansion is very important, and that is one of the research topics that we are working on with University of Buffalo. That how microgrids can be scalable, can be made scalable. Of course, that is on a larger scale of scalability. But if you think, if you just, when we design a village, when we design a microgrid, we do take into account of scalability. The beauty of solars and decentralized renewable energy is that it can be modular. You can always keep on adding. But all of these rides on the artery, right? The artery is the microgrid. Artery is the load carrying capacity of those, you know, wires. So that is where we spend a lot of time on distribution and transmission to make sure that that is capable of taking care of future nodes, future needs. We can only anticipate. We don't know what will happen. Sometimes some communities the needs have grown too fast, and you have to start going and making those interventions. In some communities, the needs are growing slowly over time. So it all depends on the village to village. But yes, we do take into account of how the scalability should come into picture.
Thank you. We are now in the last slide where we are having four questions.
Mhm.
How did you convince the people who have been practicing the same farming methods since generations to take up new technologies? I think this is very valid question. And
There is something called color of money.
yes,
So yes, it takes time. It is not so easy, because they're also getting used to it. They have so many things available. But that's what I said yesterday also. It depends on which community you work with, and it depends on who your local partner is. Right? Most places where we have worked, our local partners have been very, very progressive, and they know how to engage the community, they know how to deal with them. And in fact, in Kudgaon, we did it ourselves. So you know, we have just told them. And in fact, many places, they are the one who are asking us. You know, it is demand. I, very few places, there are hardly any place where we have gone and pushed the technology or pushed the idea. The idea has been pulled. They want to do things, but they didn't have the means to do this. And we have just provided the means, we have facilitated those means, and they are flourishing. So I think it is also very, it is people think that they don't want to, but believe me or not, everybody wants a better life. Everybody wants to grow socio-economically, and that is an inherent human nature. And our villagers are equally part of that.
Very true. Until and unless the last people who are going to be benefited, they are interested, we cannot do anything. Their involvement, their acceptance is much more required than anybody else.
Correct.
And again, a question that any case study has been presented to Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India for getting their attention to fund the projects to have sustainable villages. I think definitely you have done multiple things, but anyway, you can give more perspective on this.
Uh, by the time we start to work with the secretary moves out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so working with the government is a double-edged sword because see, and I am also part of another group which is trying to see how entrepreneurs should be supported by the government. The government doesn't have a mechanism to support innovation and entrepreneurship. Really, I cannot go and bid for things. They have to give me some concession. They have to let me show something. You know, the I'll just give you an example. The, when I presented in front of the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, he was excited about it. He said, "Great work. Why are you working in Odisha? You are from IIT Kanpur. Come to UP." I said, "Well, I'm ready to come to UP." And then he said, "But how do I onboard you?"
Yeah.
I said, "This is ridiculous. You guys are the chief executives. You guys are the leaders. If you do not know how to onboard a technology, onboard innovation, then what is that you can do?" So, sir, if any of you have thinks that I can go and give a presentation and that could be a positive result, I am willing to come with you. But for me, I do not have that much of a time to go and spend day in day out at the ministry. You go for one meeting and it takes 2 days to get that meeting. How can a normal entrepreneur work like that? Tell me. So I'm disappointed definitely. But if someone can give me hope, I'm with you. I'll come.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for putting this perspective. Dealing with government and working with government is really tough, and I can understand the pain what you have gone through, especially when you are dealing with state governments. Next question is,
Believe
what further innovations are possible according to you?
what other?
What further innovations are possible? So he is not happy, means he wants to know what is your future plans.
When we started, right? When we started, we just thought about energy. So we developed nanogrid. By the time we developed nanogrid, Even the grid industry moved faster. A lot of electrification happened. Microgrid went out of fashion. There is still need, but it there is nobody wants to talk. But when you started working with the villagers, then we came to know that there is another need that I can satisfy. Right? There are other requirements. So that's why we started working on Aquanet. Right? There was a real need for farmers to improve their income and go from one crop to three crop and sustainability. So we developed that. Now we are seeing there is a need for something else. So again, I will go back to the. I'll just uh, answer that question in.
Yeah. So
Uh,
we,
now, just one. Yeah, this is the helix. Okay,
yeah,
this is how I'll answer your question. That depending on, see, this helix is not only for the community. This helix is also for us. Depending on what stage of the community and what challenges we face in the community, we continue to develop our value proposition. Value proposition is what keeps changing, and what could be required today is not needed tomorrow. So it's like any other organization which needs to constantly evolve, constantly innovate to stay relevant to its stakeholders. So I do not know what innovation would be required tomorrow, and we will do it whatever is required. But I also say that we are just one perspective. You guys get on board. You guys come, look at the village, and then say, I think this is the opportunity, and go develop something new. There are so many opportunities in the village. You can come and meet many of these needs in the villages if you have the courage and if you have the uh, you know persistence to go into the villages and solve these problems. So the landscape, so the it's an open field. There are so many things needed. Even I don't know what all is needed.
true. So I will again repeat what you have yesterday told, that we need crores of lakpatis rather than
Yes.
a few hundred crore-patis. So anyone can go and start work. I think the model what you have presented is scalable, and anyone can start from very modest amount of resources if they are having. Now coming to next question, autonomous microgrid is more challenging. Technical difficulties that you have faced, and is there any platform for final year students to cope with? I think they are asking about projects which you have already answered. We will quickly go to the next question. Is there any work on collecting or compiling traditional knowledge and practices being done to serve a repository, etc., as regards to crop cycle or post harvest management, etc.?
Well, not that I'm aware of. We are still looking for some information and we're trying to build a database. But the traditional wisdom needs to be combined with modern technologies to make it scalable. So, yes, it is possible, but no, I'm not aware if any such repository exists. We have tried to look around and haven't found much.
Yeah, so now coming to the last question, because we are already 20 minutes after the schedule. So that shows that how interactive and how nicely you have presented. So we have received a lot of questions. So last question, implementing smart technologies need good investment. Is the revenue generated is satisfying the investors? What are the incentives for the youth to work in this area?
Uh, the incentive to work in this area is your passion, is your compassion. not only passion but compassion. Social entrepreneurship itself is difficult, and socio-technical entrepreneurship, where we fall into, where we are trying to develop technology for the social good, is even harder. The getting the mainstream funding is not that easy for you. Okay, you every investor, whether they call themselves impact or social or any investor, they nobody has a horizon less. I think yesterday also I mentioned that they all want to exit in 3 to 5 years. They all want 25% IRR and all that. Not possible. I'm seriously. We are we are here to build a business, build a socio-technical business. I am not here for exits. Okay? And that is one message I really want to give to our entrepreneurs. That don't start a company or don't do something that only for the sake that maybe I'll sell it to Google and make some money. You can get short-term satisfaction, but if you're really interested in solving a problem, really interested in making a difference, really interested in building a business, invest yourself on the right problem to find the right solution. The rest will automatically come. If I had started this whole thing that I want to do something that I can just go and get $1 billion investment and sell myself for 100 billion, I would not have been talking to any of you today. Right? The reason we are here, the reason people want to replicate us is that we have shown resilience, we have shown a model, we have shown a method that can be applied to attain sustainable socio-economic development. So investment has been tough, and I think I have already touched upon it to you that we are here to help our community. Okay? So for a socio-technical enterprise, impact is more important than return. It's not that we don't want return, but we don't want the kind of return that the so-called VC want from us, and I don't think I can provide it at least in what I'm doing, trying to do in this sector. We have many people interested, and there will be some strategic investors who will come in to help us, and we are exploring multiple things. But mainstream VCs, I don't think anybody wants to touch me. So if I do not know if I encouraged you or discouraged you, whoever asked this question, but I have given you the reality that yes, it is a sector that is still good to get into. You can get some funding. There are some business model there, like for example, our water solution. We may easily get investment, and we will. Right? So it all depends on what interventions you make and how impactful it is and what returns does it give. But if you are thinking of social entrepreneurship, think of cause and impact first.
Yeah, thank you,
So,
Dr. Das. Thank you very much for 2 days of nice, I will say, very, very interactive and meaningful session. We are receiving a lot of positive feedback on the window as well as on social media. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and the experience. I think no one else in India is having as much as experience to work with villages as you are having. So that's why we have chosen you to be here to share your experience and expertise. I request all the participants, if you are having any further questions, we have given you the LinkedIn profile link. You can connect with him directly, and he is very generous. He will be able to reply you as quickly as possible. And now I would like to thank all the participants also for joining us in huge numbers. Tomorrow onwards, we will be taking up a new topic which is on design thinking and human-centered design thinking and co-creation, which will be taken care by Dr. Jay Krishnan Divakaran. So again, tomorrow same time, 6 p.m. We'll be meeting all of you, and we will take you a new journey for another 1 hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging around, and thank you for asking tough questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Das. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll keep in touch. Bye
Sure.
bye.